Can you name yourself now?
Hi, everybody. So happy to be with you all and talking about this environmental hero that I've been following for quite a while. So the purpose of our group is to impact a deeper understanding and a broader comprehensive strategies addressing climate change and ecological healing that focuses on nature-based solutions to restore ecosystem health. Because we understand that stopping fossil fuel emissions is not enough. And even the focus on carbon sequestration that finally people are getting, that still doesn't adequately take into account the complexity of Earth's multidimensional, symbiotic, diverse, amazing living systems. So we favor a holistic approach that honors the connection between the health of the soil, water, organisms, humans, and the planet, that climate change, land abuse, biodiversity, food security, environmental and racial justice, and public health are all inextricably linked. And we focus in collaboration with our allies, which, by the way, Wendell State Forest Alliance is one of them, on education, policy, and practices that support biodiversity, that store carbon in healthy soil, forests, and all plant life, which feeds the soil food web and cycles nutrients, which protects forests, because forests are not tree plantations. They're living social communities that thrive on connection and communication, just like us. We support regenerative eco-agriculture and transforming food systems for greater nutrition, food justice, security, and sovereignty. And Vandana's work, touches on a lot of these things. Some of our current projects are we produce and host educational talks on all of these topics. We amplify the work of our allies, support relevant legislation, the way that Gia was talking about the bills to stop logging on public lands. We do that with Save Mass Forests as well, about solar installations in forests, reducing pesticide use. We work with No for Mass Policy Committee. We work with Town's Board of Health right now on an alternate mosquito management plan, so aerial spraying. The project about biomass in Springfield, the wood burning plant, is an example of the intersection between environmental and racial justice. So it's very broad reaching and deep too. What struck me about the film and Vandana's work in general, and this is not going to be a surprise after you heard what our group does, is her understanding and her focus on the interconnectedness of living systems. And that if you don't, and she says, if you don't understand that, you don't actually have knowledge. And this interconnectedness that's needed between scientific knowledge and indigenous knowledge, from growers, from women, from the peasants. And that also includes the innate wisdom that's in all of us. And I love that it's about relationships, that she talks about the seed, right, as an example and metaphor for embodying those relationships with the soil and our health. And it made me, think about, I think she might have mentioned the sun, which is light energy converted to carbon life forms through photosynthesis, connections of ourselves, that we're made of the same elements as all of the earth. So of course, human health is dependent on soil and plant health, that climate is dependent on natural regulating systems, so ecological healing can stabilize the climate. And here's the moving part for me, is that it's not just biological dependence, but that love is essential in all these relationships, that living systems need care. You can see when she talks about planting the seeds in the soil, the appreciation that it requires, that treating each other, human beings, with respect, treating the earth with gratitude, not exploiting and dominating nature and other people. And I've been thinking about colonization lately because, we talk so much about that, which is based on dominating others, but also on dominating the earth. And one can only imagine that kind of existence if you don't really know in your core that you're the same as other human beings and that you're a part of the earth. So this industrial mechanistic reductionist approach that she talks about is very far removed from the humanity and the earth democracy that we need to practice. And if I have another minute, I'll just say one new thing that I learned, or newer, was I learned about the tragedy of the Indian farmer suicide and how pesticides led to more pests, to more dependency on pesticides, to further debt, and to their feeling so hopeless and powerless. I didn't know enough about that. And I also liked being reminded about the women who started the tree huggers movement, which I knew about, and didn't know that she was related to that, and learning how that and so many related movies in history influenced her work and who she became, and who she became because all of us stand on the shoulders of who came before us.
Thank you, Lenore. All right, Dylan, has Ulam shown up?
No.
No, there is no one new.
Okay.
You can speak for that group.
Well,
Dan or all three of you can say something about NOFA. You all know.
Lenore, you probably would know most. Do you want to talk a little bit about NOFA?
I love NOFA. So NOFA Mass is a big ally of ours also. In fact, Carole Horowitz and Stephen France, a couple of us are on the policy committee. And they are
in the audience who's with NOFA?
I'm sorry, Carolyn?
Is there someone in the audience who's with NOFA?
Yes, Carol. Well, let me look. I don't think so. I mean,
I don't think so.
Carol, unless Carol, who's part of our group, would rather talk about it than me. I don't think there's members, because some of our members are members.
So why don't you go ahead, Lenore? Go ahead and
okay.
But just say what the acronym, there are too many acronyms.
It's
say it.
Northeast Organic Farming System.
Association.
Yeah, and it's part of New England has, each of the state has its own. So we work mostly with NOFA Mass, but also with Greater NOFA. I highly recommend becoming members. They have a great conference on soil health and everything related to regenerative organic farming. They have a wonderful education system. They have some outreach programs. Anna Mohammed works with a group in Springfield, which empowers youth leadership and organic garden, community gardens. So many projects supporting our local farmers and doing a lot of policy work. I mean, I can answer questions, but that's what comes to mind. I just think they're a wonderful organization that is essential to our understanding our connection with land and how we grow our food for nutrient density, for soil health, and for farmers' rights is essential.
Thank you. All right, so Jim, are you here?
Jim is here.
All right, so Jim Becket is half of the team of Jim and Camilla Becket, who are the filmmakers. And Jim, why don't you take about 10 minutes and talk about the making of the film and the issues that you chose to focus on as out of the spectrum of Vandana's life, the ones that you chose for this film and why? You'll need to unmute yourself. Jim, you're muted. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, okay. First of all, I need to establish that I am a son of the Berkshires. And like everyone of my generation, when America was predominant, we got out and we saw the world. And then like many people, I ended up in California. I ended up in California, so that's where I am now. So I've been a filmmaker. You will not take my word for it. Okay, so that being established, so I've been a filmmaker for maybe 40 years. And the last film that we worked on was What You Have All Seen. And first of all, I'm so impressed by you. Oh, come on, man. I'm in the middle of giving the speech of my life on Zoom. And I mean, unless you have something to add, okay. So let me get on with it because there are all these articulate, smart people. Okay, bye. I don't know if you heard that, but
yeah.
Okay. Yes. I mean, your activism is so impressive, and you're all very articulate. So that certainly gives hope. Anyway, I knew Vandana. I was very involved in a series of environmental symposia that brought religious leaders and scientists together, long estranged communities, and they might agree on the issue of environment. So the person who organized that was actually my ex-wife, and who was a Greek. And we got large ships and put 200 people, religious leaders, media, et cetera, and went around 8 bodies of water, the Aegean, the Arctic, the Amazon. They were incredible. And of course, science is able to get the facts, and religion hopefully can change people's behavior. So they turned out to be very fruitful. Now, Vandana Shiva, a logical person to be on these symposia, she attended 2 or 3. So that's how I got to know her. And then the 9th one that we were going to do on a body of water was the Ganges. So we went to India and met with Vandana, who was going to arrange it. That sadly never happened. But getting to know Vandana and seeing what an extraordinary, as you can tell, person, said, gosh, you know, why don't we make a film about you? And of course, a number of people apparently had done that. But I guess the fact that she knew me from this, she said, sure. So that started now an 8-year trip. As many of you know, to be independent filmmakers, it's really a battle to get a few things done, go out, raise money, get a few things done, go out and raise money. So with all that struggle, it's very gratifying that what you have said, that the film really, oh my goodness, I think I better close my door. Okay. Sorry for these interruptions. I guess that's one part of the Zoom world, that if you're at home, things happen. Anyway, so it's been very gratifying that we were sort of a bridge between you and Vandana, and you who were fans already and knew about her, but could also see some of the aspects of her life that you might not have been aware of. I don't know about the time limit here. Oh yes, you had a question about, now, of course, if you're covering a person's life, particularly an amazing person like Vandana, we had a number of scenes or moments in her life that we ended up cutting, you know, that not everything goes in. One, for example, was when she was when she went into labor with her son, she went to the first hospital and they wanted to do a cesarean. Well, a cesarean is what we do these days, and this is in India. And she leapt off the table, no cesarean, drove around looking, and finally the third hospital found someone who would do a natural childbirth, which really went well. Then also a part that was interesting to us, of course, was her grandfather started a girls' school. And also his daughter, Vandana's mother, had a college degree, which in this time was practically unheard of for women. So he started a women's college, a women's high school, and he wanted to make it into a college with help from the government. And how things were done then, he went on a fast to make, like Gandhi did and all of that in order to bring attention. And finally, so he's there, and I think on the 6th or 7th day of his fast, the letter was in the mail approving the funds, but he died. He died as a result of the fast. So Vandana has this sort of lineage of activism, but sadly, her grandfather paid the final price. But we filmed at the school with all the young ladies. It was great. And I could say a number of other things, but anyway, those are two that, and of course we fought over certain things like, what about this thing about custody battle that she had because of her son? Now, is this relevant? And I was certainly arguing it's probably the most important thing she ever did in terms of affecting women's lives directly. I mean, to get rid of that patriarchal legal system that gave, and I don't know if but I guess, and also when the film is finished, you forget the things that you forgot. That you cut, despite the fact there was blood on the cutting room floor. So there we go. I feel suddenly the urge we should fill space. As an interviewer, what is something that you learn is someone is talking and they stop. And you want more, so you don't say anything and you create silence. And there's a human instinct to film that, to fill that silence. So the person says, all right, I was unfaithful to my wife, if that's what you want to hear. So often that will produce good moments. Not that moment necessarily, but yes. So if someone else wants to fill the silence, there we go. Anyway, thank you for that. And again, I'm so impressed with your activism. So, I mean, making a film it takes no courage particularly, but what you're doing to confront authority and all of that, if I had a hat, I would take it off. I could maybe, yeah.
Vivienne, can I just add to Jim? There's his hat.
It's got Patagonia on it, which is one of the sponsors. Whoops, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But anyway, because I know you're a nonprofit and all that good stuff, to the library.
Jim, I just want to encourage people to go to the website of your film because there are these little clips of Vandana, those little video clips, and they're not all in the film, and they're all really good. They're really easy to listen to, like little 3 minutes of her talking, about different pieces of related important information, especially at least with the work that we do in our group. I think there's a lot. In fact, we're going to put it on our website. The link to your film and those video clips. So I just wanted to let people know that even though you couldn't get everything in the film, there's more, and there's the Vandana organization. There's more about her work and related work.
That's really encouraging. Actually, we're redoing the website to make it more professional, but it is up there, and we've got a bunch of these clips, 2-3 minutes. And all of you saw your way through an hour and 24 minutes. So there you go. Right, and 3 minutes is often a good length in this contemporary attention span.
Well, I have some things to add about her. And while I'm doing that, people can be putting questions or comments in the chat. So I'll fill some space while people are thinking about that. So I met Vandana Shiva in the year 2000. Not long after I married Ward Morehouse, who had spent much of his life working on the struggle to get justice for the victims of the Bhopal chemical spill. And he had been working with Vandana on that. And I don't know, it has to do with the Green Revolution. In Union Carbide, an American company, built a pesticide plant and sited it in Bhopal, India, in a very poor area. The pesticide plant was designed to make pesticides for the Green Revolution, to kill the bugs that would eat up the plants that had come from the seeds that you saw in the film that they had come to make people buy that wouldn't, you know, they couldn't save these seeds, but they had to have pesticides. And they were negligent. They didn't want to spend money on safety. They didn't have OSHA like we do. Not that OSHA protects us that well, but they're really negligent in the third world, these countries, these companies. And there was a gas leak and over 20,000 people died. And this pesticide created pulmonary problems. There were people who hadn't died, but were dying in various stages of dying. And Ward Morehouse and Vandana and a bunch of international doctors created a committee to try to get Union Carbide to give the formula of the pesticide to a pharmaceutical company so that that company would create an antidote to give the people to ease the disease and maybe save lives. And it's very relevant to our vaccine question now. There was no court in the world, no, not the UN, not the United States. They spent years. No court in the world can compel a multinational corporation to reveal any trade secret it chooses. So they got very close over that struggle. And then I met her again in 2004 at the World Social Forum, which happened to be in Bombay, India. And at the same time, there was an international water conference, and she led a group of people to the south of India where Coca-Cola and Pepsi too, but mostly Coke, was going around the country telling villagers, getting contracts with villagers to pump water out for their bottling plant, and not telling them the truth, that they were going to suck all the water out of the water table till there'd be no water left, which is what happened. And the villages went brown and they could never have agriculture again. And there were groups of women who created protest encampments across the street from the company in the various places. And they'd stay there for as long as 2 years to try to get the government to help them with Coca-Cola. And she brought people from the West who would come to the social forum to travel around India and see what Coca-Cola was doing in India. And then, of course, I got to know her when she came here to speak. But her history was partly on these issues, and as Lenore said, the interconnectedness of things. But from the beginning, she was a real anti-corporate person, and she felt that multinational corporations were coming to take over India, and that India, you know, they'd replaced Britain in a way, and she wanted to keep them out, that wherever they came or whatever they touched, they were going to take over, and there had to be a resistance. I mean, Exxon was in India. I can't remember what they were doing. She was fighting them too. So I don't see anything in the chat, so, and I'm done. Vivienne, do you want to
Gina has a
Judy,
question.
why don't you just unmute yourself and speak, Judy Hyde? You know you're muted, Judy.
I want to make sure that's what the moderator wants me to do.
Well,
yeah, go right ahead.
we're co-moderators. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I am so thrilled to hear from the maker of this film. I think, without a doubt, this is the very best documentary I've ever seen in a very long life of many films. I think,
whoa.
Really, and I measure that by my reaction afterward. I had two reactions. One is, first of all, I want to give you money, but I went to your website and I tried to figure out how to do that, but it didn't come clear how to do it. So I'm happy to have this chance to tell you it wasn't obvious to me how to make that happen. The other thing is I wanted a photo of Vandana Shiva to put on my altar, but I didn't have one of those either.
I have one I can give you.
I decided, right then and there that she is my current day hero. I just don't know anybody alive who has been more effective as a one woman, powerhouse in accomplishing everything that she's accomplished in this steady, straightforward, rational, logical, no stars and stripes and fireworks, just the power of her persuasion and her argument and her science has created so much awareness in this world that wouldn't have existed otherwise. And I wanted to particularly appreciate this one detail, which was that you took me inside the seed bank. I never knew what a seed bank looked like and exactly what was involved and how elaborate it is and how it's no small deal. It was a very amazing deal that she pulled that off. So I just really am in awe of your filmmaking and your ability to capture so much of the richness of that one human being. Her life just speaks. It's such a testament to what's possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy. And I'm looking here and Judy, are you done?
I think so.
Okay, so I'm not seeing, Carolyn, are you seeing any? So everybody, we're taking questions and comments. So if anybody has something that you want to ask one or all the panelists, or if you have a comment you want to make about the film or some of the issues in the film, or if you'd like to talk about some work that you know that's going on, you'd like to inform other people about, just make a note in the chat that you want to be called on, and I'll recognize you and you can unmute yourself and join the conversation. In the meantime, I'd hoped there was going to be somebody here. If people are familiar with the Pioneer Valley Workers Association, Workers Committee, out of that organization, a group of people formed what's called Riquezas del Campo, which is an immigrant formed, led, run, owned, cooperative organic farm here in the Valley. Right. And was hoping one of the people from the farm was going to be able to come, but they are completely overwhelmed now. They had some difficulties because of COVID in getting machinery and supplies, and they're behind. So I have a statement I'm going to read about their work so people know who they are and how to get in touch with them. And this is from Mary, who's one of the worker owners at the co-op, and she's the secretary. She wrote, Riquezas del Campo is an immigrant-led, worker-owned cooperative farm that began in 2018 with the support of the Pioneer Valley Worker Center. Now entering its third season, the farm has grown to 4 acres. Later this summer, you can find our sustainably grown produce at River Valley Co-op and the Tuesday Market. Volunteers are welcome and appreciated at weekly volunteer work days on Saturdays from 9 to 1. Our farm is located at 17 Linseed Road in Hatfield. And for more information, you can contact us at our email, which is coop@rvvc.org. RIQUEZDELCAMPO.farm. If anyone wants to get that, I will put it into the chat as well. All right, so
Gia had her hand up.
Gia, did you post a question?
We just
No,
Okay, and I'm just wondering if I'm missing something here in the chat area. Yeah, go ahead, Gia.
okay. I'd like to talk about white patriarchal colonialism.
Go for it.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I got my brother's support there. We all share one mother. I doubt there's a lot of disagreement around that in this room. And we've been estranged in many intentional and sort of maybe unintentional byproduct sort of ways by the society, the system that has become so complex and enormous and now global, and for a long time global. And yeah, I'm struck immediately by how, Jim, you decided to start the film with that statement about the war on nature, beginning with, I'm paraphrasing, of course, she said, the war on nature begins in the minds of men. And I mean men.
Right.
And I work with, I'm looking at some of my brothers right now who respect women and myself, and we need you, we need all of us together. I feel that we are at a time of cultural reckoning, and it's a life and death situation globally. You know, at least some lives, many lives will be lost, depending on our behaviors. And for me anyway, and I'm speaking for myself, not for Wendell State Forest Alliance, the deepening and let's say healing of our relationship with our mother is essential to our survival. And for me, it's a spiritual and a physical and a, you know, a holistic process that we need to do together, not separately. And so I believe that our future is dependent on our mother, but is also dependent on the rising up of feminine powers. And that includes the feminine energies in our men. And so I'm inspired by Vandana's strong trust and faith in the strength of women and women in community. And it's somewhat encouraging on a good day. So I'll leave it at that. And if anyone wants to.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the debates was over, and I mean men, right in the beginning of the movie. Are we going to lose half our audience? You know, should we cut just that little line? No. This is Vandana. So, hey, this is her film.
So, Vivienne, we have two comments.
So there's a short comment first from Laurel. Laurel, did you want to say something? If you do, unmute yourself.
I didn't really want to say anything, but I will say thank you to Gia. You know, in the Wendell State Forest Alliance, she is a real true leader. And part of it is that depth of feeling and commitment to the earth. I thank you, Gia.
But your comment about GM trees, why don't you just make it?
Yes, you know, we're hearing about chestnuts and things that we're losing and possibly can save if we use scientific means such as genetically modifying what we have left. And I think Vandana talked about that too, but I did watch the film about 2 weeks ago. So or longer. And I forgot what take she took on that. On trees, because we are trying to protect our forests, and anything artificial other than what nature does in the forests, it seems to me to be very destructive. It's, nature is so complicated, so complex. How can we, so I even read something about, we can plant a forest. No, we can't. We cannot substitute our knowledge, and never will, for what nature does, what creation is. So, I'm sure she had something to say about what people will do to preserve certain species of trees.
Anyone on the panel want to say anything about this?
Yeah.
I'll briefly just say that I didn't really expand on the patriarchy that I wanted to talk about, because I'm trying to control myself a little bit. But this just a little bit. I do want to just to dovetail on Laurel's comment and say that what we're up against is the belief that we can manage nature, that we can harness nature. And to me, that is a patriarchal mindset. So, and it doesn't work. So I just wanted to tie those together. And that's a very foundational cultural belief that's hard to release.
So Emily Schmalzer, would you like to do, I know Emily, Vivienne, would you like to just say that yourself so we don't have to read it all and just make your comment? Emily? You have to unmute yourself, Emily. You have to unmute yourself. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry.
Okay.
It was a wonderful film, and I really enjoyed it. But I have a problem with people reacting too negatively towards GMO material, because I think we shouldn't lump all GMO activity together. And one thing that bothered me in the film was how you dealt with the BT treatment of plants in India. And
what is BT?
BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, or something like that. And it is a bacillus, a bacterium, which secretes a toxin which is toxic to larvae. And it works very, very well until they all get smart and get around it. And she got the science, confused me with her science thing. She was talking about bioengineering the plants to resist BT, and it was very confusing to me. And I thought that doesn't help the argument if it's confusing people. That's all. That's all I have to say, really.
Oh, I see.
Good point. I take note. Thank you.
So you're saying in that instance, she was supporting?
No, I think she wasn't. Perhaps I misunderstood it. I just watched the movie, but I could have misunderstood. But BT has been very good until all the animals got resistant to it. But it was great for a while, and it's not. I don't think GMO is involved in it, but I'm not very knowledgeable, so perhaps I'm misunderstanding, but I did not understand the what she had to say about BT and GMO.
Yeah, well, BT and what she's talking about is about cotton, right? And that's what you were referring to. And she's always good with slogans. Say GMO, God move over, which is basically her position that nature should do it. And for me, I think the emphasis shouldn't really be on GMO, but should be on pesticides, because that's what's poisoning people, and that's what we eat and what we and why organic agriculture doesn't have that issue. So I think the concentration should be on pesticides rather than GMOs, but GMOs do require, fertilizers, pesticides, et cetera, and was shown with the Indian farmers that they ended up being absolutely saddled with debt if they had a bad year.
Well, that's a whole other problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's related. I mean, if you're adopting an industrial agricultural model, and you're having to pay a lot of money to get the seeds, to get the fertilizers, et cetera, and you have a bad year, then in the Indian system, you're forced to go to money lenders, and then we're back in bigger debt. I mean, in this country, of course, we have enormous subsidies that go to industrial agriculture. And I might even agree with Ted Cruz, who said we should cut agricultural subsidies. But that, of course, just encourages this same industrial agricultural model, which has thrown all these small farmers. People have been 3-4 generations in the Midwest, and they're ending up going in town to make a living because they want to keep the family farm. Well, you know this story much better than I, so.
Well, of course, there's other solutions other than not using GMO. One of which might be to lower the cost of GMO seeds so that they are affordable and our people can get through a bad season without going deeply into debt. I think, there's just so many good things that GMO can do that we shouldn't just be damning GMO as a whole thing. It isn't necessarily a good thing either to have some new pest come and wipe out our forest. That sort of thing. There are things that GMO can do. I remember hearing people talk about vitamin A for kids in Tibet and so forth. Rice that produces vitamin A for kids to not go blind.
So Emily, can I ask you a question? Emily, what do you think that GMOs can do that the natural ecosystem and regenerative organic farming can't do? And also, are you aware that with GMOs, there's always going to be pesticide and chemical fertilizer use? It works together. That's how the system works. And so you are creating pesticide-resistant plants. You are putting things like glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in what was called Roundup. I don't even know what they call it now. Into the soil and into everything. It doesn't degrade. It's in. You can't wash it off your plants. It's in your food. It's a known carcinogen. It's a biocide. It kills everything. It kills the biota in your gut. There's no way of having GMOs without having all of the poisons that go along with it. And the GMOs are supposed to deal with global hunger, but it has not worked. And there is the reason that there's global hunger is because of politics and greed, not because the earth cannot support food for the entire planet. It most certainly can. And there's a couple of websites that if you look at our website, you can inform yourself further about this with links to other websites. So I'm just wondering where you're getting the information about how GMOs are better.
I have no authority. You know a great deal more than I do. And I am not alone in saying that we should not be lumping all GMOs into one basket in hell. There are conceivable ways that you can manipulate organisms so that they will be both and then it's a statement of belief that I think we can develop GMO products that will not be deleterious. And I really think, you know, we have a lot of smart people on this planet, and to say no, 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 we can't do that is foolish. So
I think one thing is using genetic science, you know, to help humanity and to help the planet. And another thing is to think that you are going to be able to understand all the repercussions of using industrial agriculture or globalized agriculture, and not seeing what kind of degradation you are creating to the ecosystem. And I think this is something that requires a little bit more education to talk more intelligently about.
On both sides.
On all sides. But, you know, what I would like to do is open it up to someone in our audience who I think actually has some, yes, Laurel, genetic modification is tied with the use of pesticides. I'm just answering that question.
Not always.
Well, the way that it's used in industrial agriculture.
But not always. I think that you have to separate good GMOs from bad GMOs, and then GMOs that get manipulated by all those Monsanto type places. Those are it's the big industries that.
Do you know an example of what you're talking about? I would like to understand it better.
We heard a lot about Monsanto and how they're.
No. Monsanto and Bayer, I know all about that. What you're saying, the benefits.
Mostly hypothetical. I don't.
Yeah, because the thing that Monsanto's been really good at is propaganda, and it would benefit to really look at all of the oh my God, I can't remember who wrote that white paper on the expose of Monsanto and the collusion with EPA. I can't believe I can't remember his name, forgive me. But it's quite eye-opening how much that has been manipulated for the public's perception. So there's a lot to unpack there. And I'm actually wondering, I think Ed Bourgeois is on is in our audience, and I'm wondering if he or if anyone else can add to this conversation, but particularly I wanted him to speak to the UN Food Summit now, which is a really good example of some of what Vandana has been talking about multinational corporations taking over the food system. So Ed, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to just speak to that for a few minutes, I think that would be, if it doesn't, I don't know how much more time we have in the talk, but I think that's important to bring up.
So
we also had some other hands up, and Vivienne is our facilitator, and I see your mouth moving, but you're muted.
Yeah, I didn't see another question, sorry. Vivienne, you take over. Sorry.
Well, Carole Horowitz was raising her hand, but.
Yes, can I say something? This is Carole. I just wanted to say that we have to look at the motivation behind developing GMOs and who is controlling it, and how is it going to be used for the good if there's always a profit required. So I just wanted to bring up the profit motive, and that is what has driven genetic modification. And I think just it goes back to what Gia was saying about us thinking that we can control the earth better than nature does itself. And I think we better be very, very careful with that, because I think we've had some really, really bad outcomes. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
And it's also a monopoly. It's a monopoly. I mean, profit, yes, but also trying to get a monopoly. And that's what they did in India. They bought up all these small seed companies, and then Monsanto, under different names, was the only one available. so they can control price if you have a monopoly. It's the basic capitalistic rule.
Maybe Ed Bourgeois can speak.
Hello?
Yeah.
You hearing me?
Yeah.
Yes, Lenore mentioned Global Food Summit, and I could just say a little bit about GMOs. Often it's whether we either use an insecticide or a pesticide, or it's put into the plant genetically. So it's sort of the same process. It's sort of
Ed, can you get closer? Can you get closer to your microphone, please? It's hard to hear you.
Okay. It's a special net. Let me try shutting this off. Now?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay. So it's either the, so most of those are for pest resistance issues. So you're either putting it into the plant or you're making the plant resistant to a pesticide you're going to use around the plant. So either way, it's sort of an antibiotic approach. And we pretty much have the understandings now how with the plant biome and the soil biome to go probiotic, the same we do with humans now. We don't think so much about using antibiotics. We want to build up our own personal resistance and nurture our biome. And then something I know Vandana's working on a lot, and I am too, is the UN Global Food Summit. That's going to be in July, in September at the UN in New York City. The pre-summit is in July, mid-July. And I've been very involved in trying to get regenerative agriculture. There's a big thing that, the sort of land grabs that are going on. Big food wants to sort of take a little stronger control of the food system, and a lot of exploitation going on. And we've been making some progress. We've been posing some questions and really getting, I think they're getting a little nervous now that they're going to have to start being a little more inclusive than they have been. We did a recent one with Farmers and Producers Forum that they put on, that the UN and World Economic Forum put on. For North and South America, there were only 113 people attended. There should have been several thousand. So it's been interesting times. But anyway, I think that's enough for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Ed. So Tom, I see you wanted to say something. You want to jump in?
Thank you. My first experience, well, the precursor to GMOs was the whole high yield variety seed and green revolution. I was in South America at the time and really watched the conversion of cropland into land for profiteering by corporations, by moving production for local use to production for export. And when you do that, you take land out of production for local food. And so this then morphed into the GMO thing. And the way it was sold to farmers is that they're moving a barter economy into a capital economy. And quite often it's backed up by the military. Because local farmers don't have the power to resist it. And so what I've seen in South America and in West Africa and East Africa is just that transformation of food that is grown for local consumption, now have that land, say, halved, for example, and genetic seeds brought in that could theoretically produce more, but they don't have natural resistance. Whereas in Senegal, farmers would have 12 different seeds that they would all plant out to get 12 different varieties of millet, for example. And now they come in with the GMO seed or the high yield seed back, say, more in the 70s and the 80s, that can produce under ideal circumstances, but you don't have ideal circumstances of the regular rain. And seeds that had natural resistances, they've lost those. They can't collect the seeds anymore because now they're under corporate control to plant the seeds that they get from the corporations. And those seeds grow with the pesticides and chemicals. So now farmers that had no debt at all before, you know, they're given a loan so they can buy this stuff, and they never get out of debt because the corporation controls the price that they get for the peanuts that go to France and the United States. So there was never an intent, from my experience, for high yield varieties and so-called green revolution, which had nothing to do with feeding people, and the GMOs, which has nothing to do with feeding people, other than making profits off all of these chemicals, to where, you know, when you talked about seeing the seed bank, these saving natural seeds is something that is historic in many ways and has virtually disappeared from the places where I've lived in other countries. So I would appreciate hearing something that GMOs have done that is beneficial, because in my experience, I haven't seen it. And I don't want to take up time, but I could draw parallels. I grew up on a little dairy farm, and I watched when DDT came in, and I watched when Earl Butz said, get bigger, get out. And we all went out of business because that's when food was used as a weapon and it became industrialized. And I've said enough, but there's real parallels of what happened to farming in this country in a small farm and what has happened internationally around the world. So thank you.
So Tom and Lynn, I'm wondering if the two of you have ever done a song about food systems that you could sing us a verse from.
Well, I have the 4-Lane Highway song, which is about the farm I grew up on, which doesn't necessarily speak to that, but that was the week. I mean, in different songs, I have references to capitalism and corporatization and control of food. I mean,
pick a verse. Pick your favorite verse. Lynn, you pick one.
Well, I don't know. It's not going to sound good on Zoom.
No, it won't really sound good on Zoom, and now's not the time. Book a concert.
All right.
We'll do a Zoom concert, you know.
Go to the website, and there's lots of music to listen to.
And there's references in my music to this, too.
Okay. Well, if you change your mind, we're happy to hear a verse. All right. Let's go back then to the chat room. Anybody else have a question or a comment about the film or any of the issues raised by the film?
You have 2 hands up, 3 hands up, Vivienne.
I don't see where.
Don Cohen, Leslie, and Jim.
Oh, so people aren't going in chat.
Oh, Linda, not John.
Gotcha.
In the chat.
Okay, call on Leslie.
All right.
Hold on, I'm going to take.
Jim has already spoken, unless it's a different Jim.
Different Jim.
Oh, there's a different Jim? I don't see it.
Yeah, we got two Jims here. One with a big
Jim Thornley, that groovy looking California looking guy.
Okay, so Leslie and Jim.
We got a Jim with a mustache, I think.
I just wanted to chime in about the golden rice GMO feeding the world. That was funded by Bill Gates with deep pockets to put out that myth. It's not true. So just wanted to chime in about
it failed. Yeah, it did not meet its promise.
Right, but Bill Gates's deep pockets did a lot of marketing, which of course Emily remembers.
You say
and other people remember.
Failed. What happened? What happened? You say it failed. What happened?
Well, it did not work the way one hoped. I mean, the idea, that's a nice idea because blindness is an issue and those are people who eat rice. So let's put vitamin A in rice. And it did not have it was not successful, is my understanding. The Philippines was where they really made the big effort to grow.
Does that mean that they couldn't get the vitamin A gene into the plant, or did it not help the kids not go blind?
You're speaking beyond my expertise, but Jim keeps raising his hand.
Wait, but the woman who brought it up, Leslie, do you know more?
I'm curious what Jim has to say.
Well, but
my understanding is that the yield was not what they promised. And that seems to be across the board with genetically modified foods. It creates kind of like an addiction to more chemicals, which I know other people have mentioned. And that's all that it does. It multiplies the use of pesticides that we don't need to grow abundant food.
All right.
Can I make a note about nutrient density in food, which is what the bigger topic is? Infusing a vitamin in a food, is that the nutrient density comes from quality seed and healthy soil, neither of which are in the world of GMOs. And the healthy soil comes from a healthy soil microbiology, comes from plants giving their exudates into the soil, the mycorrhizal fungal network going out and doing this whole trade and exchange that helps them to take up the nutrients from the soil, which goes into the plant. And that kind of complex biochemistry is what we eat and what our guts need to then process food for nutrient density. That does not happen with genetically modified food. No way, no how. Okay. So, I mean, I can talk a lot more about that, but nutrient density does not come from that way of planting food.
Okay, let's
so, Jim Thornley, did you want to jump into the conversation?
Actually,
Jim's been waiting.
I hear that this works better, my speaking.
Hi, Jim.
Hello. I'm coming from the completely opposite side of it. When I got involved with Wendell State Forest, and I went into where they were going to cut that forest, that part of the forest, which was actually the largest part, was 88 acres, hadn't been touched. It had grown naturally from a field, and it hadn't been touched in over 100 years. And 2 different times walking through there, I saw chestnut trees. Now, I've heard that they keep trying to come up and then they die and whatever, but one time I was walking in and there was a small one. It was probably 5 feet tall, and it had all these, the fuzzy seed pods on it, and they were ready to throw out some more seeds. And another time I went in, actually the last time, just like the few days before they cut, I saw a chestnut tree there that was about 15 feet tall, and it had a big scar on it, which it looked like was healing. And I was thinking, geez, maybe this is one of these that will, through its own Darwinian natural way, overcome this, root rot that was killing the chestnut trees. And so a lot of the loggers are especially in the eastern part of the country now, they're chopping down all the ash trees. Oh, they're going to get the green emerald borer, and it's going to kill them all. So we have to cut them down before they get infected. And which is basically a way to get a whole bunch of nice ash wood and basically destroy it. But the real way to do it is to leave it alone and find out if any of the trees can actually have enough, whatever their own genetic makeup, to resist what's there. And so they're just preaching madness. So in a sense, I'm coming at it from the other way, where if we just would leave it to nature instead of thinking that we are the brains behind the planet, we might be better off. And which is basically what I took from the film, which actually I thought was so beautifully put together, and thank you, Jim, for that. Anyway, there was it sort of brought the conversation to the other side of it. I'm sorry about that.
No apologies needed. Thank you, Jim.
Can I just suggest, if anyone is interested in forest ecology and how forests have systems set up for resistance to virus, and it's just amazing how they communicate and how built in it is to the system. There's a wonderful forest ecologist from the family of foresters who basically was the person who is you know, she inspired James Cameron in the movie Avatar, the Mother Tree Civilization. It's from her work that was inspired. And her name is Suzanne Simard, S-I-M-A-R-D. You can look it up online, and she has some wonderful talks if anyone is interested in how forests are so much more than we think they are.
So I'd say we have another 7 minutes. That should prompt people to. Oh, there's John Cohen, somebody in that box.
Yeah, good. This is Linda, actually, John. I have a question. Does anyone remember the Percy Schmeiser story? Yeah, good. Jim, filmmaker, you might be interested in Percy. He's a man was he from Ontario, Leslie?
Yes, no, I certainly met him, but he unfortunately died a couple.
I was afraid it's true.
Yeah,
his story is just extraordinary, and so the opposite of Vandala's story in a way, because the GMO farming destroyed him. It just completely destroyed him. That he was a seed saver and natural farmer. Was he organic? I don't think so. I think he grew his own seeds. But anyway, his Monsanto took over the neighborhood farms, and he was accused by Monsanto of stealing Monsanto seeds because the wind blew the Monsanto seeds over into his farm. And so he was accused by Monsanto of stealing Monsanto seeds, and his life was destroyed by that. And he went around our area 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I can't remember now, how talking to people about the dangers of industrial farming, the Monsantos and the Bayers, and how it's not just the GMO seed that is so destructive, but it's the whole policy of taking over the entire area where they come in one farm at a time. And they had a Gestapo kind of military force that came in and intimidated them, Percy Schmeiser and Mrs. Schmeiser. But anyway, I just wondered if anybody had followed that story. So he has died. Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Linda, I believe he was from Saskatchewan, and there was
Saskatchewan, that's it, I'm sorry, yeah.
From Saskatchewan, and there was a settlement, but he wasn't allowed to talk about it.
That's true.
In fact, we might have been at the same gathering that he had down at Hampshire College way back.
We saw him both there and at the Greenfield Co-op.
Yeah. I just remembered the name of the doctor who wrote the Monsanto white paper. It's Dr. Jonathan Latham. I highly recommend if you want an expose on the kind of criminality behind Monsanto, that's a good research paper. I mean, you can also just look up other things online.
Lenore, can you just put his name into the chat so people can have that? So we've got just a couple of minutes left, and I would like to ask both Lenore and Gia to tell people how they can get in touch with you, what your website is, and then Carolyn can announce the next film. So Lenore or Gia?
Announce it while they're putting it into the chat.
Oh, well, I can put this in the chat, but I can also tell you that Wendell State Forest Alliance can be reached at Wendell, WENDELL, forest.org. At our Gmail is wendellstateforest@gmail.com. And we have a Facebook group that's hard to find, even though it's a public group, because of its members only. It's not so easy to search for. So I'll put that in the chat. It's long. It's easier to just copy it.
Great. And Lenore, how people can get in touch with you and the group?
I just put our website in the chat. It's Climate Action Now, MA for math, and that's important. climateactionnowma.org/farms forest food. And we're a tab under the Climate Action Now website, but we have like our own website within the website. And We're about to put a whole bunch of new exciting pages on there, but there's already some good resources. But by next week, we should have all the other resources up. Great. It's a wealth of information that sends you to another wealth of information. So there's a lot to learn and enjoy. And there's little snippets too. You don't have to read, you know, everything. There's little 3-minute videos here and there too.
Great. Carolyn, do you want to announce the last film, and then I'll let Jim have the last word?
Okay.
Oh, can I just say one more thing? I'm sorry, Vivienne, I forgot. Yeah. If you want to join our listserv to find out, you know, updates and what our next talks are and how to get involved, there's a form that you can sign up there. There's also an email that you can just email if you don't want to, you know, sign for the listserv, but you're interested in some particular aspect, and that email goes to me, so I'd be responding to it. Thanks, everybody.
All right, Carolyn, do you want to announce the last film, and then we'll have Jim give the last word.
Okay, so next, the fourth Wednesday in June, I don't have my calendar, but we're the fourth Wednesday. The film is called The Rainbow Coalition, and it is about a group in Chicago. If any of you have seen the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, which is about Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers, there's a significant chunk there about the Rainbow Coalition. It was an organization of Black Panthers, Puerto Ricans, the Young Lords, and a street gang group of poor white Appalachians in Chicago called the Young Patriots. And the three together formed the Rainbow Coalition and did some amazing social service and advocacy for the poor. And there was nothing like it in the country. And it came up in the film Judas and Black Messiah, but several years ago, a filmmaker named Ray Santispan from New Mexico made this film, and I'm going to show it. We're going to show it in 4 weeks. So those of you who registered, we should have your emails collected, so you'll get an email. Okay.
Great. And thank you to everybody who's participated in a lively conversation. Thanks particularly to Gia and Lenore for your very thoughtful presentations. And Jim, like everybody, I thank you so much for making this film and inspiring all of this conversation. And so I'm going to give it to you, Jim. We've got about a minute left.
But before you do, I want to thank you for putting together this great group. Thank you so much. And for bringing the film to the Francis Crowe Films, without which we wouldn't have had it. Okay, go to Jim.
Jim, final words?
Okay, my great opportunity. Anyway, no, thank you so much. I mean, Vivienne, Carolyn, and it's so encouraging. I mean, as a filmmaker that you like the film, that's important. But I'm so impressed with your expertise and your dedication as activists, and you're so well informed. So that, I mean, we always talk about grassroots, right? Well, here we are. So you guys are doing amazing work, and I don't know why I ever left the Berkshires. It's all happening there. Gee. Anyway, thank you.
You're welcome back.
Anytime.
And Carolyn, thank you for the ongoing film series that brings so much richness to this community.
Thank you, Vivienne. And thank you, Dylan, who has been.
And Dylan, thank you for managing all of the technology stuff so we didn't have to.
Okay.
All right, everybody.
Enjoy the evening.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you for all your good efforts, no matter what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
Doing something, everybody.
So Jim, Becket, why don't you stay on the line, and Carolyn stay on the line?
Okay. Can we do that without making Dylan stay?
If Dylan wants to go home, right?
I am home.
Oh, you are home.
I don't mind staying for a few more minutes.
But if you can't leave if we stay, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't mind.
Okay.
Would you like me to stop recording now?
Yeah, we can stop recording now. And so where does that get posted if we want to let people know about it?